10 purpose was to lure UNE traitor to show himself. Though what they did was risky, it had worked. I must admit, I was just betting for it to happen. Fortunately, they acted as I hoped. Dustin narrowed his eyes. Sir Paul's death had been too sudden. It's very suspicious. The traitor must have a guilty conscience. He's bound to show himself once he hears of the slightest information. He wouldn't be able to stay put. If he gets the idea to destroy the evidence, he'll jump straight into my trap. So it's his quilt playing up. Cornelius stroked his chin and asked, Cerise, there was also a possibility he wouldn't show up. What then? Do you have any other plans? If he doesn't show up, Dustin smiled faintly. Then you'll have to start making arrangements for my funeral. What? Cornelius froze on the spot as the corner of his mouth twitched. Wasn't Dustin too fearless? He was betting on this with his life. His price for winning the bet was his life. But if he lost, he'd end up dead. At that moment, Autumn was pacing around in his study within the Hill family residence. He looked anxious and would occasionally steal glances out the window. Though he had dispatched the hidden guards, he still felt on edge. If they failed, his life would be in danger. Sir Autumn! One of the leaders of the hidden guards rushed in. He bowed. Mission accomplished. We found it. You found it. Autumn was instantly spirited. Where is it? Hurry, show me. Here, please have a look. The leader of the hidden guards took out a small sachet and handed it to Autumn. Autumn hastily opened it up to find a letter inside. He opened the letter to look at its contents and immediately frowned. There's evidence on the corpse. It was left on his body before he died. Autumn's brows furrowed as he thought about it. He had checked the corpse thoroughly when he handled it. He hadn't noticed anything out of the ordinary. Could he have missed something? Gather a few of our men. We're going to the hill behind the Hill family residence. I will open the coffin to check on the corpse tonight. After thinking for a moment, Autumn quickly decided on his next action. He could not afford to take the risk. If he'd missed something, he'd be in huge trouble. He had to destroy any evidence before anyone found out. 30 minutes later, Autumn and his trusted men secretly went to the hill behind the Hill family residence. This was where all the members of the Hill family were buried after they'd passed away. Paul was buried there, too. When they got to Paul's grave, Autumn bowed deeply and muttered to himself, I'm sorry, Father. Please don't mind me. Then he straightened up and gestured to his men. Start digging. With his orders, the men began digging. In less than 30 minutes, they had uncovered the coffin. Just then, a gust of chilling wind swept around them. They shivered and stopped what they were doing. They hunched their shoulders and glanced around guiltily. Why are you just standing there? Open up the coffin. Autumn roared. At this point, it was too late for him to turn back. Open it up. Clenching their jaws, the men braved themselves and opened up the coffin. Paul lay there in the coffin in a formal suit. His face looked deathly pale, and he didn't look peaceful. Forgive me, Father. Autumn gulped dryly and hopped into the coffin. He began feeling around Paul's corpse. He searched around a couple of times but couldn't find anything. He even checked his mouth, nostrils, hair, and under his nails and repeated it several times. But where's the evidence? Why is there nothing? Autumn was stressed, and he sweated profusely. He became more frustrated the more he searched. Hey, suddenly a hand patted Autumn on the shoulders. Fuck, Autumn was scared out of his wits and leapt several feet backward. He nearly peed his pants. No man could handle the shock of suddenly being patted on the shoulders while digging up someone's grave and rummaging around a corpse. Who the fuck? Autumn was about to turn around and start cursing when he noticed his surroundings. For some reason, his men were defeated on the ground. A man in white stood by the coffin and stared silently at him. Under the moonlight, the man's face looked pale and creepy. He was as scary as a ghost. Dustin? Autumn's eyes widened. Why are you here? How would I know you're the traitor if I don't come here? Dustin smiled thinly. Wait. Autumn suddenly came to his senses. He paled and exclaimed, Is this all a trap? There wasn't any evidence to begin with. It's too late to realize now. Dustin looked at Autumn coldly as he approached Autumn. A person who murders his family is unforgivable, tell me. How would you prefer to die? Stand right there. I'm warning you. You better not come any closer. I'm part of the Hill family. Autumn backed up as he shouted at Dustin. How dare you say something like that when you killed your own father? Dustin looked at him disdainfully. If I tell the public what happened today, what do you think will happen to you? Hidden guards, kill him. Autumn suddenly yelled. He wanted to kill Dustin to keep things a secret, but there was only silence around him. Only the occasional sound of the wind howling could be heard. Hidden guards, hidden guards. Autumn panicked and looked around in distress. Your trusted men are here. Cornelius held two bloody heads in his hands. He appeared from the shadows and walked into the moonlight. Then, with a toss, the heads rolled to Autumn's feet. The blood drained from Autumn's face. There's no escaping for you, Autumn. What else have you got to say now? Dustin said icily. Wait a minute. Seeing how the situation was turning bad, an idea came to him. Dustin, there are no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. Let's talk this out. How would you like to talk about this? Dustin appeared impassive. A collaboration. We can work together. Autumn swallowed before he continued. The Hills are extremely wealthy. Our riches are more than you think. If you'll back me up, I can give you half of the family's assets. You'll have everything that you ever wanted. How's that? I am now labeled as a murderer. How will you deal with that? Dustin asked suddenly. That's easy. We'll just get a scapegoat. Autumn looked delighted, thinking that Dustin was tempted by his suggestion. He quickly added, if you agree to the collaboration, I'll find someone within the family to be the scapegoat. I promise you'll walk out of this with no problem. Sounds pretty good. Dustin nodded. Autumn heaved a sigh of relief and continued. With your abilities and my powers, we'll make a perfect alliance if we pair up. By then, not only the Hill family, but even the entire Balerno would have to fall at our feet. The young grandmother had already made a name for himself throughout Balerno. Autumn thought that if he could get Dustin to work with him, he'd have someone strong on his side. He could bring the entire Hill family to greater heights with Dustin. I'm just curious. Why did you kill Sir Paul? Dustin answered Autumn with a question. If he'd stepped down from his position earlier, things would never turn out like this. Autumn huffed. But that old man simply wouldn't. He held on to his authority and would not give up his position. If he didn't die, we would never get to inherit his position. So because of that, you killed your father. Dustin simply could not comprehend. Is that not reason enough? Autumn grumbled. If he'd just retired gracefully and enjoyed his days, nothing would have happened. We'd have been the perfect family. He was the one who brought all this upon himself. Had Paul been an ordinary man, nothing would have happened. He might last a few more years in the position and die of old age. But he was a grandmother. Grandmasters had exceptionally long lives and had no problem living to over 100 years old. The Forhill brothers might not outlive him. Nobody could say for sure who'd die first. He could only take a risk to achieve his goal in such a circumstance. If he didn't, he might be under his father's control for his entire life. What a terrible son you are. Dustin narrowed his eyes. He could never understand how some people's consciences were shrouded by greed. They wouldn't even hesitate to betray their family for power and authority. Dustin, let's not talk about that old man anymore. Autumn swiftly changed the topic. The important matter now is to think about our future plans. If you support me, I can gain control over the entire Hill family within days. When have I agreed to work with you? Dustin asked coldly. What? Autumn frowned. I've already said so much. Aren't you the least bit tempted? You willingly killed your father. If I collaborated with a beast like you, it would only ruin my reputation.